Okay, ping theory of consciousness. I think that we're in a field of consciousness. Everything's arising from this field. Like you say, everything's permeated with consciousness. Our brains are the things which amplify consciousness. There's a source consciousness. That source consciousness, when we have an idea, we send a ping, let's say like a sonar ping, back to that source consciousness, and then that sends information to us, and then at the right times we then utilize that information to evolve. So I just thought about like inventions, and you have like, let's say, Da Vinci and some of the stuff that he created. One more thing about ping theory is like when you are, let's say, in this field of consciousness, your brain's the antenna that picks up on things within a collective consciousness, or source consciousness, or collective unconsciousness. There's a number of different words for it. You can check out like Jungian terminology. There's some interesting things there. But anyway, our brains can amplify consciousness, and each one of us have our own personal experiences, our conscious experience of life existing, how we do our own personal qualia. And I just want to say that. But so you have Da Vinci, and Da Vinci made some very interesting things. And by the way, I'm not an atheist or a theist, because see, the thing with things being in a field of consciousness is I can go choose to have the conscious experience of being an atheist. I can go choose then to have the conscious experience of being a theist. It's like somebody's like thinking they sold their soul to some demonic entity, and it's like, then stop having that conscious experience. Just change your viewpoint. You ever heard the saying that change your viewpoint, change your life? Just go the other way. It's not hard to figure out. And that sounds rude. I'm not trying to like insult anybody's belief, but it's like some of the stuff I've seen people say, they just put themselves in fear and agony, and they're just like torturing themselves. It's just like, then change your outlook on life and go and have a new conscious experience. You can prove what I'm saying too in a very slight way. Think about like listen to techno for 6 months straight and do techno things and be allied with that community for 6 months. See how much everything around you start noticing lines up with that. Then switch to Grateful Dead, old world, like Jerry Garcia, Grateful Dead, and then start seeing hippies and all these things, and these things will start coming out of the woodwork. And it's like this is weird, It's not just like confirmation bias either. The point is that or it could be a form of confirmation bias. Maybe that's like helping, steer the observer, so to speak. Anyway, the point is that so that's why I'm not an atheist or a theist. I think it's one of those things like, somebody lines up with atheism, they start, having conscious experiences related to that, the quality associated with that, the feelings. Somebody lines up with a religious practice, they start having the quality associated with that, the feelings associated with that, the experiences associated with that. Some people like the experiences they get out of certain things, so they stick to those things. So inventions like Da Vinci made some very interesting sketches about flying machines. And let's say you had 100 people at one point. The collective consciousness wasn't at a point where it was able to evolve properly together to have those machines become manifest in reality. People were like, probably, you're crazy Da Vinci for drawing these things, there's just no way. Eventually more people, time went on, more information got out about these machines, these inventions, and then eventually had 50 people out of 100 think it was possible. And then you probably hit a tipping point where the collective consciousness is able then to access a certain modern invention, because then your mind's set for something. Your mind's been primed with source consciousness, those pings going back and forth, to understand that the invention that's there has some merit to society, to evolving humankind. So I think it's pretty straightforward. You could think of a fish coming out of being chased up on land by a predator, and then it realizes, it sends a ping back when it's up on land that it's safe on land. So source consciousness says, okay, it needs legs and it needs to be able to get oxygen from the air. So then eventually over generations, that information is encoded, let's say within DNA, and that helps, eventually we have fish coming out of the water. So this doesn't prove or disprove deities. Those things could just be archetypes. It doesn't disprove or really prove anything, but rather what it does, the way I see it, is it kind of makes the world to where it's almost impossible to not coexist in peace. Because it's like, why would you want to have the conscious experience of being harmful to another? if you don't have to have that, because why would you want the conscious experience of being put in prison if you were, doing domestic violence to someone, or aggravated assault, or, selling huge amounts of drugs, or, whatever the hell. So I'm sure you see where I'm going with this. So I don't see anybody that's in their right mind that would choose to be put behind, a prison bar, or put in prison, because, you can just change your outlook, change your life kind of thing. So just make sure what you're doing, this is easier said than done for some. It's not saying like, some homeless guy is just going to visualize a Ferrari and a Bugatti and winning the lottery and it's going to happen. You have to still have, you have to understand you're still within a field of consciousness where there's other conscious agents, entities, if you want to call it, that have, we have rules, regulations, a Bill of Rights, laws, what's legal, what's not legal. So you see where I'm going with that? If somebody wanted to believe in a soul, let's say, a soul is a qualia associated with a variety of experiences, is a qualia, let's say, associated with a feelings one gets from a religious experience. So you can't sell a soul. Like a Buddhist might sit there and say that a soul is character, your character. That makes more sense to me. Your character, your integrity. You ever heard people say like someone lives with soul? What that implies is, somebody helps the homeless. They put others first. They're not racist or homophobic or just the things that you see people do. They're living with soul as if they're an individual of great character and integrity. And so that's kind of like what living with soul means. That's what I think soul means. What it really is just this qualia, this experience that we have of trying to improve our life. And in the past, where that word came from, it was more associated with why it got shoved in the religious sphere, is because in the past when things were very warring states, serfs and kings, it was one of those things that helped define some of the things that helped to bring about morality, because religion was a huge cornerstone, religion and spiritual practice, in helping to instill morality within people's lives. So anyway, so then you have this soul associated with morality, with being good and living for something, but it also can be used as a tool to kind of harm. What I mean by that is somebody says you're not in with our group gets to go to heaven. You don't get to go. So I'm not trying to be rude to those people that believe certain things. But you see how that works, and the quality associated with that could also be very negative, which doesn't really make sense to me, given the fact that if you can just change your outlook and things are fluid, consciousness is fluid, experience is fluid. There's not like one way, one sex position. I mean, think about that. There's like these myriad, numerous ways to have sex. So, when you start putting things into context like that, we have to embrace that in a more modern sense, that fluid nature of so many things. Not stuck in the dark ages where things are, just one way or the other. So anyway, it was just a thought. That fish goes up on land running from the predator, and it sends the ping back to source that it needs to be up on land longer, and then source sends the information for the fins to turn to legs. Eventually they will turn to legs. And then to be able to pull enough oxygen out of the atmosphere. And that's, where lungs and fins and evolution come from. Ugg is in a cave. He draws a cave painting. Ugg is sitting there thinking, I need leaders. We need leaders in this tribe. So he's looking at the cave painting of a woman. That sends a ping back to source consciousness. Source consciousness sends the idea, the information to create gods and goddesses. So those things are intimately tied to us because they're creations of consciousness as well. It doesn't mean they're real or not real. It just means you can access those things through their religious practice, lining up correspondence, with certain things. The chalice is the liquid, the wine is the blood, or the body, the bread is the flesh. Start seeing correspondence to access states of consciousness, to have religious experiences, which help evolve our mental state. So, anyways, you see where I'm going with this. So it's like with Da Vinci, if with certain things that are very progressive and let's say the inventive sphere of thinking, you'd have to have the group mind out of the 100 people. Basically, you'd have to have enough people online with it being a good invention for it to then kind of take off and come to a certain positive conclusion for the invention to actually work and help benefit humankind. Anyway, it's just a thought. I can't ramble on too long here. But, just an idea. Ping theory of consciousness. I'm kind of writing this thing as I go.